Okay, I believe we are live. I just want to check something. Oh my goodness. I always like to check the sound just in case for whatever reason. Here we are. Yeah, there we go. I just want to make sure that everything's all set up before I get started because have had I have had the experience where I've gone through an entire stream and I didn't realize that my sound was off until like a good chunk into the stream. It was really embarrassing. But so, yeah, anyways, like the title of the stream says, I'm going to be finishing up my little guy right here. He's mostly done. I'm going to touch up the paint a little bit before adding the black wash, but before I even get to that, like if you couldn't tell by now, this is me trying to make my first mini look like Chestnut. And I realized as soon as I got started with the painting and realizing, oh, I need to get pink for his weapons, that I forgot to add his little knife. So I'm going to be painting this little knife and then gluing it onto him. Hopefully that doesn't do anything to the paint. We shall see. And also, last weekend, you probably saw I caved and I got a new little mini. So I got this dude. He's the Mechanicus. I just thought he looked really, really cool, so I got him on a whim. And he's already been put together and primed, though I think I'm going to save him for the very last because I have a bunch of other minis to paint. And also, he's got a lot of intricate details, and I want to at least, buff up my painting skills before I paint him because I want him to look good. All right. So, yeah, so that's what we will be doing. And today, we're going to be covering a few different things. We're going to be talking about a little bit about GW, and we're also going to be talking about the little controversy or little kerfuffle that happened a few months back relating to the female Custodes. So we'll get there where we get there, but a lot of people ask the question of why are we doing female Custodes in the first place? Because for the longest time in their history, they have been all male. It was an all male faction. And there's the typical answer of they want to be more progressive. It's because they want that like EG credit, whatever thing. And in my experience as a comic book nerd who watched the exact same thing happen to comic books where they tried to replace all of the male characters with female characters, queer characters, and POC characters, I don't think it's entirely for the sake of diversity. Because a lot of times when a company tries to pull something like that, where they're trying to suddenly go woke, it can mean a couple of different things. One, they're on the men's, so they're trying to get a boost in sales, and the best way to get sales is some controversy. Two, they want to be on the right side of history. Or three, either they have done some shady shit in the past and they want to cover it up, or they are about to pull some shady shit and they want to distract people before they get mad at them. And maybe this is a hot take of mine, but all right, so the 11th edition is coming out, and it's focusing more on Armageddon, long story there. And they're bringing back a fan favorite character named Yarrick, Commissar Sebastian Yarrick. And it's also not going to be focused on the Ultramarines this time. It's going to be focusing more on the Blood Angels. And, oh, great, we've wanted to get away from the Ultramarines for so long. But I fully believe that that specific move was to get people to quickly forget about the female Custodes thing, and also to distract people from the fact that it looks like they are going to be charging like an arm and a leg for this new edition. Apparently we're not going to be getting a physical book just yet. And I saw a like joking short about how they were going to sell a course on how to play the 11th edition that was like £600. That's English money. And it's like, excuse me? That is ridiculous even by Warhammer standards. So I think Games Workshop is panicking. I think they know they have fucked up, but they don't want to admit it. So I think that's kind of why they were doing all that teasing with the 11th edition. And again, we'll get to the female Custodes thing in a little bit, but something that I thought would be fun for us to go over. It was a video I was going to play last week, but I think it's particularly relevant here. It's this video by Tom and Don. They're the creators of Space King, and this video is going over the various lawsuits that Warhammer has gotten themselves involved in. And by involved in, I mean they started the fight, and they're hoping that you don't look too deep into it. And I think this might be part of the reason why they really wanted to get into the good graces of the woke crowd in the first place, because some of the stuff that they pulled, I only watched about like 10 minutes of this, but some of the stuff that they pulled as far as lawsuits go, no one would back them up for, because they are just absolutely ludicrous. But anyway, let's get to our first video. Tom and Don, Warhammer's greatest enemy.
Today, we're talking about Games Workshop and their endless legal wars. Games Workshop, the company behind Warhammer 40k, has built a reputation for being litigious douchebags, going after fan projects and creators, and legally scaring anyone who even thinks about making fan content. So today, we're going to take a look at some of the incidents that turned that reputation into controversy. And
something I forgot to mention, it's something that my boyfriend asked me because he's getting really into Space King, but it has been a while since the latest episode of Space King. So 4 came out back in December. We're still waiting on 5. It's been like 6 months. And he asked me, hey, do you think it's because of Games Workshop's propensity to go after anything that could be violating their copyright could be the possible reason why Space King's taking a little longer to cook this time? I don't think that's quite the case, because they have sidestepped the creative, copywriting enough to where, no, it's not Warhammer, but if you look at it, yeah, it's definitely Warhammer. I mean, it's impossible to deny that it's basically a parody of Warhammer. So I don't think it's the case. It could possibly be, though, because they pull some really petty shit. But anyway, let's get into this, and I'm going to start painting this knife.
how they changed Games Workshop forever.
Dun, dun, dun.
Games Workshop is a British company that produces a ton of games, including the Warhammer series, Warhammer Fantasy, and Warhammer 40k. Warhammer pulls heavily from classic fantasy and sci-fi, including orcs, elves, and armored space soldiers, ideas that existed long before Warhammer, which makes them hard to legally own. Because of this, Games Workshop has spent years trying to define what it owns, and over time, they became known for aggressively defending it through lawsuits, cease and desist letters, and takedowns.
Allegedly.
In doing so, they increasingly found themselves at odds with the very community that helped build their success. Item 1, the Chapter House case. The first major legal turning point involves a small company called Chapter House Studios. Chapter House made upgrade parts designed to fit Warhammer miniatures like shoulder pads, weapons, conversion kits, and even original models for units GW had named but had never even depicted in a model, like the Tyrannid Mycretic Spore. Probably not so much anymore, but old codexes used to have rules for units, and they just never made a model for the unit. It's kind of strange.
That is kind of weird. Like, you can't get pissy about people figuring out how to make the model themselves if you yourself are not going to make it. So, I do get why they would be a little about another company making, Warhammer parts, because they want to be the only ones to make Warhammer parts and for people to buy the Warhammer parts from them. So I can see it like that. But if you're not even going to try to give your gamers what they want, then you can't blame them for figuring out other ways to make the thing. It's like when anime localizers get pissy that people want to get into piracy, but it's like, well, with some anime series, you literally cannot find them, and it's not necessarily our fault that we had to resort to piracy. I remember this was years ago. It was the Saint Young Men anime. I could not find that anime on any website at the time, and I had no choice but to pirate. It wasn't necessarily something I wanted to do, but I didn't have a choice. So it's like I can understand to a certain extent why you would be mad at someone for, doing the thing, but you weren't going to do it anyway, so why are you getting mad, bro?
It's
You
kind
know?
of strange.
So you'd have to like proxy or do a conversion, and maybe that was the idea, is they wanted to encourage like hobbying. Inevitably, as a result, you get people doing that at scale and making custom models to represent the stuff there isn't models for, like this Tower of Pussies.
I respect that so much. This is classic, a big company trying to keep the little man down, you know? Where else am I going to get my giant pussy spawner? Unless they're going to make it, what am I to do?
Yeah, they're not going to make this, obviously. Games Workshop filed a lawsuit in 2010 for copyright and trademark infringement, arguing Chapter House was exploiting its IP. Chapter House argued that you cannot infringe on something that was never visually defined or officially produced. The case went to federal court and dragged on for years, with one of the major issues being whether or not naming something in a rulebook counts as owning its full visual design.
Which I would argue no. Just because there's a lot that goes into like the visual design of things. Obviously, it's different for comic books because it is a visual medium. So you cannot like there was this controversy a little while back about the crap, what was it? But it was like a parody character of Captain America. I am so terrible with names. I'm sorry, guys. But anyways, he looked so much like Captain America. He was basically Captain America, and Marvel got their panties in a twist because he looked too much like Captain America, which, yeah, he did. And they had to do a lot of legal ease to make sure that both characters can exist without infringing on each other's copyright. So in the case of comic books, where we have a visual reference, you can copyright that visual. But there's a difference between writing something and not giving a visual reference and then claiming that, oh yeah, we own that. Like whatever you came up with, we own that design. It's like, no, you don't. You did not come up with that design. Like, again, you can't get mad at people for doing the thing that you weren't going to do in the first place.
Oh, interesting.
The court basically ruled that if Games Workshop never showed what something looked like, others could create their own interpretation. At the same time, the court reviewed around 200 specific claims brought by Games Workshop against Chapter House, with Games Workshop winning roughly 30% of them. So they still got rolled. Chapter House was forced to remove products that were too close to existing designs, including variations like female Eldar units.
All right, I didn't know Games Workshop were kind of cool.
Oh, okay, yeah, some good came out of this.
Yeah, you know, it's always shades of grey with this kind of stuff. You know, it's easy to believe the David versus Goliath, but sometimes Goliath is actually kind of cool.
I actually think there being female Eldar units is kind of tight. Like,
yeah, I know. I'm just being silly. I'm just being a silly boy.
But just as important were the claims Games Workshop lost, where the court found certain elements were too generic or not clearly defined enough to be protected.
Are you telling me that Space Marine is too generic to be protected? I protest.
Just naming something or relying on common sci-fi and fantasy ideas was not always enough to claim ownership. The lawsuit was settled in 2014 with both sides coming to an agreement, but it exposed limits in Games Workshop's IP control.
Dude, this is the Strait of Hormuz all over again.
To explain.
You think you're the big swingy dick and you're gonna go in and just like roll them, and then turns out that female Eldar flying at your battleships and blowing them up for $30,000 a unit and trying to intercept them with $1 million per lawsuit. It just doesn't always work out how you think it will.
You can't crush the little guy like you thought you could.
Well.
You make a big giant mess.
What happened next, Don?
God. Because Games Workshop couldn't protect items that they had no official depictions for, their updated codexes removed references to certain units until they were ready to make models for them. Like the
That's honestly such a petty thing to do. That's it's kind of like when certain animation studios will intentionally buy out the rights for an animation and then never release it, and then try and go after people who try to create their version of it. And it's like, but you weren't gonna. Like, you're pissing on something that doesn't need to be pissed on.
Tyranid, Pussy Tower, the Doom of whatever, and the Parasite of Mortrex. It's too hard to say. They shouldn't have made those anyways. Yeah, so that's why that stopped happening. It also pushed Games Workshop to be a lot more careful. If they don't want to find someone filling a niche they themselves could be filling, then they shouldn't create gaps in their own product range. Yeah, so I guess that was the end of that era of them writing rules for things that don't exist, which in a way it was kind of cool for the hobby because you could show up with like a thing that you invented from conversions and like combining kits, you know, to field that unit. But yeah.
Wow. Games Workshop apologist alert. Everyone open your wallets. Don thinks you should give them all of your money.
The next item, Spots the Space Marine.
What the fuck is Space Marine? Defense of the Fiddler. It's a sequel to Fiddler on the Roof.
Nice, dude. I didn't want to expand on that.
Nah, not really. Let me
right.
talk about the Strait of Hormuz one more time. I think that's an appropriate point to do this.
During the Chapter House dispute, another controversy arose around the term Space Marine, a phrase that had been floating around sci-fi at least since the 1930s. Wow. In 2012, a dispute involved author MCA Hogarth and her book Spots the Space Marine. The book was a children's story that used the phrase in a general sci-fi sense, but despite it appearing in works long before Warhammer 40,000 was created, Games Workshop was still using Space Marine as a core part of its branding. Games Workshop filed a complaint over the use of the term, and Amazon took the book down almost immediately. Cowards. But the removal drew attention from readers, writers, and legal commentators who argued that Space Marine was a generic term. The case spread across blogs and forums before Amazon finally reversed the decision.
And that's what I mean when it came to like design. It's like, yeah, they had their own design and their own concept of a Space Marine, so they can copyright their own version of a Space Marine, and that would be fine. What they can't do is go after anybody else with a different interpretation of what a Space Marine is. It's like how Disney can copyright their design of Cinderella. Like they have their version of Cinderella, and they can copyright that design of Cinderella. However, they cannot retroactively go after everybody else and say, oh, you use Cinderella, therefore that's violating my copyright. Like everyone has their own interpretation of Cinderella. There was Betty Boop as Cinderella. There is Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. And Cinderella, like you can't copyright that. That story has been around for so long, but you can copyright your individual design. Yeah, I know. I do know a little bit about copyright because when you are in especially comic books, there has been a lot of disputes back and forth of, okay, where is the line here? What's copyright infringement and what is just its own thing, and you can't copyright something that is its own thing. Well, or do a copyright claim against something that is its own thing.
I ever think that a lot of this is just Warhammer's legal department trying to justify its existence?
We gotta do something this week, boys.
We haven't been used for anything since Chapter House fucking rolled us. Like, we better start some shit or we're not gonna have a job.
Yeah, how many sales do you think Spots the Space Marine was doing on Amazon?
At least 3. So I can see why Games Workshop would feel under threat.
It's probably the best thing that ever happened to this author.
Yeah, I'd be pretty scared if I was a Warhammer adjacent creator or made any fan works.
Well, I think they got their comeuppance on this one as well.
Oh, yeah?
The dispute drew attention to how companies can use platform reporting systems to enforce claims without going through a full court process.
Which is very, very, very bad publicity for any company.
That's bullshit. So they just go on Amazon and they click a button and say, hey, this is us. And because they're a massive company, Amazon acquiesces without a thought and fucks this author.
Oh, dude, Toei did that to us over our Dragon Ball Z cartoon.
This is a point close to our hearts because of our Dragon Ball Z cartoon. So we did Disney tries to buy Dragon Ball Z, and we composed sound-alike music. We didn't use any official Dragon Ball Z music. We never used copyright music, and we obviously used all original voice acting. And Toei got their panties in a bunch and just bombed our video by literally just clicking a button on YouTube that lets a huge company do that to a creator. So fuck you, Toei and Games Workshop.
Yeah, valid.
This, in addition to aspects of the Chapter House case, motivated Games Workshop to create more distinctive names. So there wasn't actually a lawsuit, there was just a big hoopla about this online, and everyone calling Games Workshop cuts, so they withdrew their action.
Did they try and copyright the term Space Marine?
I think they did. Can you look that up? I think they fucking did.
Allegedly. Everything said in this video is satire. We are not serious people, don't take us seriously.
While they hold registered trademarks for the phrase in board games and miniatures.
Dude, is that right? They own the phrase in board games and miniatures. Dude, if we were to ever make miniatures, right, we can trademark the word Psycho Warrior. Do you know what though? To be fair to us, that's a more original term than Space Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anyone else dares to make Psycho Warrior miniatures.
You wait for the fucking long dick of Flash Gets Legal to come down on you.
We're coming for you.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
If you so much as create a round shoulder pad to put on the Psycho Warrior miniatures, we will fucking eviscerate you. Scorched earth. It'll kind of be like the Strait of Hormuz, actually. So let that be a warning.
Except you'll lose. right, Tom?
Fate is still being weaved, Don. Who could tell where the conflict will go? It's anyone's game at this point. Can I just give a fun fact? I got 20 years worth of earwax cleaned out of my ears this morning, and now my AirPods don't stay in my ears properly.
It's good.
I just thought that was kind of gross.
That's funny.
Literally tethering to the earwax.
I always complain, mine just don't stay in my ears and they're not that comfortable. He said, nah, dude, I've never had that problem. It must be your stupid ears, Don. Next section, Games Workshop renames everything to ownable language. So yeah, actually, this fucking sucks. After these legal limits became clear, Games Workshop began changing how it named its factions and units, leading to a massive wave of rebranding across Warhammer, with fans describing a lot of the new names as Dog Latin. What does Dog Latin mean? It sounds mean.
Dog Latin is a humorous, bastardized form of Latin created by applying English grammatical rules or simply adding Latin-sounding suffixes to English words. I love that. Sounds kind of universe appropriate too, you know?
It extended to like the paint colors as well. Games Workshop obviously sells paints to paint your little plastic men. And they all had like generic fantasy names before, and now they just all have really stupid names that are impossible to remember. Anyway. Space Marines became more formally known as Adeptus Astartes. That's fair enough, because that was always in the thing. They just stopped calling them Space Marines, I guess. Except not really, because the video games and all that, they kind of interchangeably call them those things. The Imperial Guard became the Astra Militarum. Eldar, a term Tolkien owned the copyright for, became Eldari, and Dark Eldar became...
Yeah. I mean, I get it, but also it's very funny. This reminds me so much of so about a month ago, I should say. A month ago, I wrote an article about Lupin III, the Castle of Cagliostro, and I mentioned in it that technically Monkey Punch did infringe on some copyright when he named his main character Lupin III, because Arsène Lupin was an already existing character. He was a gentleman thief in this like series about him going around and stealing stuff, and it was written by this French guy, and of course the estate of the French guy did not like the fact that the name was used without permission, so that's why in a lot of different early localizations Lupin's name is just changed to Wolf. Well, funnily enough, the French dude also got into some legal trouble, because back in the day when he was writing his stories, he wanted to include Sherlock Holmes, because obviously Sherlock Holmes is a detective and his main character is a gentleman thief, so it would be cool to have like the famous detective go after the gentleman thief. Well, Arthur Conan Doyle's legal estate did not like that and basically told him to cease and desist. And so the dude renamed the detective Sherlock Holmes, which... it's the same. This is the same vibe. It's the same vibe.
The Drukari, God. In Age of Sigmar, orcs became Oruks. Yeah, O-R-R-U-K-S, which I think is different than Tolkien's spelling. Tolkien's like U-R-U-K, like Urukai, you know?
Yeah.
And elves became, God, elves. A-E-L-V-E-S. You fucking losers.
You gotta fucking love it. I respect the hell out of that.
These changes made the names easier to trademark and defend, which while improving brand identity and searchability. Debatable. Bad script.
Fucking how many people can spell Astra Militarum off the top of their head?
Who's gonna remember to type elves instead of elves and not like fucking hate themselves? Some of the older names remained in casual use among fans despite the official changes, but the new terminology has been consistently used in rulebooks, marketing, and
Okay, so I think that's...
this marks a transition from relying on shared genre language to fully owned branding, showing how the company adapted after running into legal and practical limits. But it sucks. It really sucks. You ever think it's weird that Tolkien came up with the best names for everything? Do you think it's just because of how culture is played out, and then because
Sucks to not be the first.
of all the baggage?
Yes.
You don't think they're just like more elegantly written words and phonetically superior to fucking Drukari?
Yes, also
You know?
yes, because the man was like a linguistic like genius. He made a billion languages. He was a professor of all that kind of shit, no? So like I think probably he had the perfect combination of the stuff sounds sick in the first place, but now the associations associated with it elevate it to the point of it feeling like the standard.
Well, didn't he also did he come up with the word elves, or was that co-opted
No.
from
Co-opted from mythology.
like human myth, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess really when you go to write your own fantasy thing like Games Workshop,
So yeah, technically even Tolkien could not copyright the term elves because elves have existed long before the 20th century. So yeah.
you're up against literal thousands of years of human trial and error and rejecting words and like letting the good ones stick. Like elves, it's never going to be as good, but maybe you just let them be elves and not have to litigate the use of it also.
Yeah. No, sorry, no can do.
With stronger branding in place, Games Workshop expanded how it enforced its intellectual property.
Allegedly.
Around this time, Games Workshop launched Warhammer Plus, a platform for official animations. The launch incentivized them to control how Warhammer content was produced and distributed online. This control became visible as Warhammer content grew on YouTube. Oh, where fan animations were pulling in millions of views. In response, Games Workshop updated its IP guidelines in 2021, restricting unlicensed animation and stating that fan works should not compete with official content.
Allegedly.
I mean, they don't. I mean, I love the hell out of Tom and Don's the Templars versus the furries animations. I love the hell out of them, but I've seen clips of like the official animations done in Warhammer Plus, and it looks fantastic, and people still love it. So it's not that people are preferring the fan content over the actual content. They like both of them, and they can acknowledge that they both have their place within like the Warhammer fandom. So for them to get pissy that other creators are making fan content that the fans actually like, it's like, bro, if you're going to get pissy about it, why don't you just hire the people who are making the fan content? It could be engaging and it can be encouraging for people to want to contribute more to Warhammer. And as an aside, I was watching, I watch Instagram Reels. It's my biggest vice outside of alcohol, but I saw this one reel. It was this 14-year-old girl, and she was getting into Warhammer. She was making like Warhammer charm bracelets, like, so obviously nothing official to Warhammer. And one of the top comments on that video was, I am both happy that so many new people are getting into Warhammer, and I'm also sad that we're going to have another generation that has to deal with Games Workshop's copyright bullshit. Because yeah, she made the charm bracelets, but she's not claiming she owns Warhammer. She's not claiming, oh yeah, this is my thing. This is a me thing. She just wanted to make the cute little charm bracelets. And that was all there was to it. Like, even when I'm painting my mini, I'm saying this is my mini, but I'm not saying I own the term like Astartes or I'm the one who created this mini. I'm not saying that at all. I'm nowhere as skilled to make these plastic models. So it's like, either put up or shut up when it comes to creating. And if you're not going, again, if you're not going to create it, you can't get mad at someone else who does.
Yeah, allegedly couldn't have been us. Several major fan projects got hit almost immediately. And for top creators, the choice increasingly became go official or stop. This shit just sucks. It's like, it's bad for your community to go squash projects like that are really only making it all more popular.
Allegedly.
The animated series Stardew.
Yeah, like, something I do not understand that companies don't understand is your fans can be your greatest ally. Like, your fans are the ones who are blasting your product out into the world. Your fans are the ones who are going to be recruiting more people into your tabletop game. Your fans are doing a good chunk of the heavy lifting as far as getting more customers into the door. So why are you trying to shit on the fans? Why are you trying to antagonize the fans? Because especially with Warhammer, we'll get into the female Custodes thing in a minute, but it didn't hit me how stupid it was for Games Workshop to pull this whole gaslighting bullshit about the female Custodes on their fans and then call their fans sexist. It didn't dawn on me how stupid they were for pissing off their fans until I actually went to the game store and started looking at different models to get for my first ever paintings, and just first off how expensive everything was, how specialized everything was, and the fact that they had a dedicated fan base who was willing to put up with the prices because they love the game so much. And it's like, it is so stupid for them to piss off their core fan base like that. Why would you do that? They are the ones who are bankrolling you, and they are the ones who are going to be getting more people into Warhammer. So, I don't know. I guess I'm just a lowly indie creator, and I just don't understand how corpos think.
Was removed from its original uploads, brought under Games Workshop's control, and its creator, Syama Peterson, was hired, making the project official Warhammer content. The animator Custodes announced he was stepping away from Warhammer projects after contact from Games Workshop, deleting all 40K animations from his channel before working with them officially.
At least it's nice that they're being hooked up with jobs.
So they come and crush their independent project, and then they hire them to make shitty Warhammer Plus animations that nobody likes.
Allegedly. Who knows if that's even happens? It's important we don't state things as fact, just to be impartial.
The long-running fan film Lord Inquisitor stalled during this period. I mean, I know that project hasn't gone anywhere in 15 years.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly. But not everyone was fit to join under Games Workshop's umbrella. The series If the Emperor Had a Text-to-Speech Device went on indefinite hiatus due to legal concerns.
Oh yeah, because it's funny and people like it. Therefore, if they like it instead of us, then we must crush them. It's like, again, I don't think you quite understand that you're screwing yourself over here.
Warhammer fan I would meet in the late 2010s, early 2020s always said, oh, have you watched Emperor TTS, right? It became a legitimate column of the fandom of 40K. Everybody had seen it, everybody loved it.
Do you ever feel like some creators maybe used it as a chance to dip without angering their fan base?
No way, dude. Fuck Games Workshop. It's all Games Workshop's fault.
All right, yeah, you're right.
Games Workshop's the boogeyman. There's no nuance to this. Fuck them, but 40K is still pretty cool.
Dude, I fucking hate nuance anyway.
Smaller animation channels began removing or privating their videos, with some creators receiving copyright strikes or warnings through platform systems. Others preemptively shut down projects to avoid potential legal issues. Games Workshop's making Warhammer Plus, which is aggregating all these
Wasn't it, it was almost 15 years ago, I think. It was the SOPA bill where they wanted, it was mostly about piracy, but I believe they also wanted to extend it to fan-created content, where if you use copyright material at all, you could be hit with jail time. And that fell apart almost immediately, because how the hell do you enforce that? And didn't Anne Rice get into a thing where she didn't like that people were writing fan fiction about her books? And look, you cannot stop fan fiction writers, okay? Fan fiction writers existed long before like the computer. Like the term Mary Sue came from fan fiction. So again, it's like, why are you going through all this trouble to quash these fan projects? None of the fans are claiming that they own your product, dude. I'm gonna take out some more stuff to burn.
Soulless animations that they're commissioning for not enough money, made by people that do not care, and they're suing everybody into the ground. Allegedly. So people they haven't sued yet are disincentivized to keep going, because why are they going to work hard to build something that's just going to get burned down when Games Workshop sends them a scary email that they don't have the resources to fight? And yeah, it just crushes engagement of the community with the hobby. And that's what it really used to be. At least it really was like a hobby where you are inspiring everybody that buys into it to contribute to it in their own way and make cool stuff, whether it's like models or art or fan animations.
Yeah, like, aren't several of the Space Marine chapters fan chapters? I mean, it's like the Angry Marines. I think it was a fan-made Legion, and people just loved it, so they rolled with it. But yeah, a couple of the Legions were fan-made. I was told flat out by some of the guys at the game shop, yeah, so long as you abide by the Codex rules, you can pretty much paint your minis however you want. Nobody's going to really care unless you're going to a tournament where you have to pick like one of the houses. So again, why?
Of an opinion that crushing this stuff is never good for the community of something like this. It's just fucking stupid.
You say that now, bro. This is gonna get clipped and used against us so much when we're like big fucking overlords.
When you do this with Space King and you start making lots of money, we will sue you to death.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there clearly. We will fucking come down on you.
That's our fucking money. You're going to jail forever. You've used Space King for anything to make lots of money. Maybe a little money, but lots of money? No, sir.
So, boy, I hope people can tell we're not joking right now. I hope it's coming through clear.
Make sure that's in your little clip too, Buster, you know? Anyways, it didn't stop at crushing the fan animations. It spread into 3D printing with takedowns on Patreon and My Mini Factory targeting Warhammer-style models.
Isn't there some sort of British law or American law where, like, if you don't defend your shit, it stops belonging to you?
When people are ripping off your stuff and you don't go after them, then you're kind of
admitting that it's not even yours or something.
Admitting that you don't actually have a right to it, and then it's like a run on a bank.
If that's true, and we have done zero research as always, if that's true, that's fucking insane. I feel like it's English, dude. Yeah. I feel like that's a kind of dumb.
That sounds like an English law.
That exists in England.
Corgan, Google Games Workshop has to defend their copyright.
I like how we just read AI Google slop as if it's infallible.
It's definitely all true.
Yeah.
Infallible and...
Whatever, dude. Look it up yourselves.
As recently as April in 2025, Games Workshop filed a lawsuit against over 280 online sellers, with 170 of them paying Games Workshop a combined $10 million for damages. Fucking hell. Games Workshop even has an ongoing case against a 3D printing studio called Gamic that started off as a copyright strike that has evolved into a court case over its models due to unfair competition.
Well, fuck.
I'd be interested to hear how a lowly Patreon creator is presenting unfair competition to Games Workshop, but maybe so. Games Workshop has even claimed that many...
Yeah, remember when I said earlier that when a company tries to go woke or they suddenly decide that they want to go woke, it kind of means that they're doing some shady shit on the side, or they're about to do some shady shit on the side? This is what I meant. Like, it's like, on one hand, I do get that they want to protect their copyright, and they don't just want a random yahoo to be printing off different Space Marine factions, but at the same time, especially when it comes to the stuff that you're not even going to bother making, why aren't you doing it instead?
Many of Gamic's models are counterfeit and demanded their removal, which Gamic has provided images of on their GoFundMe.
I mean, that looks nebulous as fuck to me. I can see clear differences between those two things, starting with the big tiger head.
I mean, he's made his own unique take.
It's got different weapons. It's like different weapons, different creature. I don't know.
We don't know the ins and outs of this legal case. We're reading a stupid script our producer prepared for us, but it's assuming Games Workshop probably, but maybe not. Allegedly. So look into this yourself. Make up your own mind. These actions marked a turning point where Games Workshop shifted from defending its IP to actively consolidating control over the entire Warhammer ecosystem.
Like, say you realize that you don't have enough of a very specific part in the kits, because let me grab this. I have all my like saved heads and shoulder pads and whatnot. And say you wanted to make more of a very specific type of gun, or you wanted to like redo a hand because for some reason the one that you got was kind of janky. Would that be wrong for you to use your 3D printer to just quickly print off a new hand or print off a few new parts? I personally don't think that's the case, especially if you yourself are not going to make it.
Allegedly.
Yeah, I mean, if you're literally offering a down-to-the-rivet recreation of a Thunderhawk as an STL you're selling for $10, you probably shouldn't get to do that. But yeah, this is nuanced, and once again, Games Workshop are allegedly cut, so I'll just draw that black and white line. So in conclusion, in trying to control the universe built on shared ideas, Games Workshop screwed over many of the fans who helped build the universe in the first place. But if you want more Warhammer controversy, check out our video on the dumbest retcons in 40k. That one has female Custodes in it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. And I think, I do want to make it clear that I do understand a company wanting to protect its copyright. Like, I would not be happy if someone, say, took one of my books or took my comic and just started printing it in their own country and selling it just like that, willy-nilly. I would be very angry about that. But when it comes to, like, fan content, like, I'm not going to get mad if someone, say, draws a picture of Skylar from my comic Next Evolution and decides to like sell it at a convention. I'm not gonna get mad at that because they're not claiming that they made Skylar. I and Martin made Skylar. But I don't know. Like I'm an itty bitty little creator. I need all of the attention I can get. Wow, that gold actually went on pretty dang well. Yeah, it went on pretty dang good. I don't think I need a second coat for that. All right. Yeah, I think the knife is done. All right. Still debating on... I'll do the black wash first before I do anything else. And this is the part where I'm most nervous about, but I'm going to glue the knife on first real quick. Okay. So before we get more into the female Custodes drama, let's get into this video I found, which is why female Custodes can't exist at all within the lore, and why it is stupid to have female Custodes.
Who would have thought that while I work on the script of one of the most interesting subjects of 40k, I had to stop to talk about something as stupid as this? Hey guys, it's me, Danny. We had a lot of fun and laughs in the last videos about 40k lore with jokes and sketches, and more to come on that subject. But something came out in these days that I need to give my opinion on. In this video won't be present any other character of the show. Pio's not here, the editor is not here, the narrator for special parts of the video is not here. It is just me. In fact, let's switch to an environment where I can explain you things better. You see, in these days, a screenshot was published from the 10th edition Codex of the Adeptus Custodes that pretty much introduced us to something that was never talked about or introduced into 40k in general. Female custodians. Now, I would like to talk also as to why female Space Marines follow the same line of thinking I'm going to explain here, but I'm pressed for time, so that we'll have to wait for another video. But I can say 100% that with the lore we have now on Custodians, other than this 10th edition drop, female Custodians can't exist. Period. And I will explain why now. Removing that obviously no female custodian was ever mentioned or showed ever inside of 40k in general, or in 30k during the Great Crusade and Horus Heresy. So we never knew they existed until this specific codex dropped with 2 named ones at that, and that all the codexes before this one always mentioned that only the sons of the purest gene-stock nobles of Terra were ever taken to make custodians, meaning that before the retcon this codex brings, all custodians were created for male Terran-born nobles walls of the Imperium of Men. Unfortunately, the lore implications this brings clash extremely with the storytelling and balance of the 40k universe. You see, the process to create Custodians is not the same as the one to create Astartes. They are human children taken at younger ages than Marines, and that are taken only from the most genetically pure human nobles of Terra. No other place in the entire galaxy they are recruited from. And they aren't implanted with gene seed, but they are pretty much super evolved into a more advanced state of human evolution, using a method the Emperor himself defined as genetical alchemy, method that he created personally and for which he was the only master of, overseeing every custodian.
Now, I have heard the argument from the woke where it's like, well, why do they all have to be male? And why do you guys just want male stuff? Why male, 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 male? Well, let's be real, guys. This Warhammer is made for boys. And boys tend to prefer to play with male toy soldiers. So that's the, like, generic answer I can give. Now that we're going to get into like the Sisters of Battle and Sisters of Silence later, because guys do enjoy strong female characters, like actual strong female characters, and they do actually like certain female factions. But it's like, well, why wasn't it da 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 da? Guys like playing with dudes in super armor and shooting big guns. Okay, deal with it.
That was created personally for the most part, to cite his words directly. Every single one of them is a unique work of art, never to be repeated again. This doesn't disqualify women necessarily. If he wanted, he could and would make them. But if so, why did he never make them? Why in 9 editions we are going through in which 40k has formed, this is the first time ever we hear of it? You see, when the Emperor was around, he could have, but he never did. And he was the only one that could effectively create new custodians. Emphasis on effectively. Let me explain it better with a metaphor to make you understand how hard creating a custodian is. When the Emperor took a human child from nobility to make into a custodian, we could say he found a lock to open. Potential to unlock and plasm into a custodian from a genetically pure noble-born child of Terra. For that lock, the Emperor will forge a key. He will study his genetics, adapt the process, and evolve him in a controlled manner into a full custodian. This wouldn't exclude problems, complications, or death of the aspirant. And trust me, the level of death aspirants must face to become custodians is something that will freeze blood in your veins. But his hand in the process will diminish the odds that the aspirant died during the process. And with the key to that lock, the Emperor would unlock the power and forge a custodian out of the child he took. It is why, with his personal hand in it, the custodians, or the Golden Legion, became known as the 10,000 in just 200 years of their creation. That is a medium of 50 custodians created every year. After the Emperor was wounded by Horus and entombed in the Golden Throne, in a state of undeath in which he isn't even able to speak normally in, the creation of new custodians fell on human scientists and genetists. And there, to put it simply, they don't know what the fuck they are doing for the most part. The problem with them is reversed. They have just a passing knowledge of the Emperor process. They know how it works, but they don't know how to change it and adapt it. Now it is the inverse. The genetists of the custodians and their allies have a key they desperately try in every lock they can get their hand on. The same process with slight variation on every child they take from nobles, hoping that on some of them the key will work and make them into custodian-like beings.
I think it's like somewhat the same with the Astartes, if I remember correctly, where the actual making of a Space Marine is quite difficult within the Warhammer universe, and the reason why they mostly used men is because after their various experiments, it was just more compatible with men, and they did not want to, put women through all that, because hey, if it's this difficult for it to get to work for a man, then it's probably not a good idea to try working with it on a woman, if I remember that correctly.
A process so advanced and fallible that where for the Emperor it required only 200 years to make 10,000 custodians, to the genetists of the Custodes, it took 9,000 years to make 9,000 custodians. Useless to say that is a medium of 1 custodian every year. We are speaking of a 9 possible level of survival odds. They could be testing and processing thousands of children born of noble families every year, and still they are producing only 1 single custodian every year. Female custodians exist existing without the end of the Emperor simply doesn't make sense. The people left behind after his entombment simply do not understand the process. It has a 50 times higher death rate than it had under the end of the Emperor. So I have to ask, looking at this screenshot for this female custodian mentioned, who the fuck made them? They weren't in the air as your Great Crusade. We never saw one until this dropped. And I am assuming these are in the 42nd millennium. If they can't adapt the process to lower the odds of death, how can they adapt it to work on women that have major differences in biology and genetics than males? The Emperor did not make them.
That's
He's on the
why.
throne. So whom? Cole? Belisarius Cole? People give Cole too much credit. Cole could study to make the Primaris an extremely pure sample of DNA of every Primarch, and all he did was making the Astartes closer to Primarchs in terms of genetics and organs. He didn't invent anything. It took him 10,000 years to give 2.5 organs more to the Primaris. He is as powerless as everybody else with the Custodes. And this doesn't make sense, even with the Imperium mentality and culture. Everything in 40k must be put into context for how and why it exists. The Imperium is an hyper-traditionalist empire. There is no progress. There is no understanding. Cole is seen as an heretic for the Primaris. And Gilliman, if he wasn't a Primarch, would have been executed as an heretic for his mentality and ideas. Why in the hell would the Imperium with this mentality go against the traditions of the Custodians and try to make them female? What advantage there is in that? Disadvantages? Plenty. In fact, let me explain them. Removing the genetical differences between males and females that make males into better soldiers than females in reality or not reality. The main problem I have with female custodians existing is that they make no sense on a sustainability standpoint. Let me expose you the reality of attrition in war. Now, we know the process to make custodians is hard to survive. It was under the Emperor. It is 50 times harder now that he's on the throne, to the point that one custodian was created every year where he could make 50 per year. Have you ever asked yourself why all empires, real life-based or not, always send forward the male population as soldiers and not the female population as soldiers? Very simple. A single male can impregnate hundreds of women per year. A woman can get pregnant once every year. You need a very few males to rebuild a population from going extinct. Obviously, I'm not talking about just so few that you end up being blood related with every child within 2 generations, but not an exorbitant amount. But you need every single woman available to keep children coming.
Yeah, I think this is just something that a lot of the woke crowd does not understand, like when it comes to reality. Women can't be treated with the same throwaway mentality as men. And I'm not saying that as a woman myself. I'm saying that because last time I checked, men can't give birth. Okay, men cannot have babies. You need a man and a woman, but it doesn't take as many men. So men, by that metric, are more disposable. So it's like, of course, the society doesn't want to just have their women just go to war, because they need the women to keep the population going. Like, that's a very big genetic difference between men and women.
If custodians, with this level of death just for the genetical process to evolve them, in which we can assume thousands of potential custodians die every year, started using females, how long until there is no more females of pure genetics and noble blood to birth them? How long until all that is left is the old nobles, not capable any longer of producing more aspirants? Ever thought of that to everyone that was advocating in having female custodians? Removing the brutal level of death you want to subject even the other half of the population in 40k, how long until no more custodians can be made because there is no more genetically pure noble woman to birth more children? You could leave a set amount of females in families and use the rest. But why doing so when you can simply leave them as nobles so they can birth even more daughters that can give even more children that can become aspirants? Women in the Imperium are a resource already. It is why female-only regiments are so rare. And the Imperium knows that. Who in their right mind would use young girls for a process that has an almost certain chance of death? And for what? For that chance that 1 or 2 will be female? And what does that benefit the Imperium with? Other than giving them less recruits in the long run by using females for a process that kills almost everybody that goes through it? And then, Games Workshop, you have always to abide by the rules of world building set in every universe to keep its own internal lore consistent. First rule, Everything existing in it must abide by the world building and rules of the same world. It is why the creation of the Primaris almost caused a civil war in the Imperium, and different chapters even saw them as mutants deserving of death. Second rule, never write events that happen by going specifically against the culture your world and its people live in. And third rule, every element that exists in a story must advance, add, and better the story in every way it can, and has to do it every time it can. So I ask now, Games Workshop, how does them being...
All right, we're going to move on to a different video. I'm so nervous to apply this blackwash. But so you kind of get the reason why. It's because the process was perfected by the Emperor with men, and now that the Emperor's not here anymore, it's like, why would you even want to risk it with women since there's such a big biological difference? Like, no matter how you splice it, women are weaker than men. And even when it comes to like the Sisters of Silence and the Sisters of Battle, yeah, they are badasses in their own right, but they are nowhere near on the same level as an Astartes. All right, so I'll have time to look a little bit into one more video. All right, so this is by a creator that I enjoy called Raven Knight. And he's talking about why the concept of female Custodes is actually quite offensive when it comes to the other factions.
Hello everybody, Raven Knight here. So, the female Custodes thing. Yeah, it was only a matter of time before I threw my hat into this controversy, and trust me, I don't want to get too mired in this, but I've had a lot of people ask me my thoughts on this, so I decided I'd just make a video about it. So, if you know me, you know that I'm a fan of Warhammer 40,000, and in fact, I'm currently in the process of doing a whole series of videos going over each of the original Space Marine legions. So, I've been asked a few times about my thoughts on the new lore and minis to hit 40k, the female Custodes. What began as a simple little lore blurb in the Custodes Codex has now been officially pushed with lore additions, retcons, and now even minis to go along with it. Now, some of you may be a little confused about what I'm talking about, so for those of you who don't understand this controversy, it is a little complicated, but I will try to explain. Among the many warriors that fight for mankind in the setting of Warhammer 40,000, the greatest of them is arguably not the Astartes, the Space Marines, but the Adeptus Custodes, the custodian guard of the Emperor. Hailed as the bodyguards of the Emperor, they are a brotherhood of warriors forged long before the Space Marines were even a thing, with technology and procedures known only to a select few and designed by the Emperor himself. In general, they are taller, faster, and more intelligent than the average Space Marine, and are lauded as near mythic figures, warrior scholars, as it were. And to the people of the Imperium, they are legendary if they're even known about at all. Because for a long time, they stayed on Holy Terra, unwilling to leave the Imperial Palace to engage with the wider galaxy. But now with Robute Guilliman's return and the Great Rift bringing brand new threats to humanity, the 10,000 Golden Warriors are now going beyond Terra's borders to engage foes on other worlds, bringing them further into the setting. Now, for a long time, the lore was more or less clear on this point. The Custodes are a brotherhood made up of only males. But in recent lore retcons, in fact, in a recent little bit of a codex short story released, females have now been added to their number. And many fans asked Games Workshop to explain, where did this new female Custodes come from? How is this possible? When did this happen? And the tweet response from Games Workshop was, simply put, there have always been female Custodes. Now, this was blatant gaslighting, as the fan base all knew that this was a bold-faced lie. There had never been female Custodes.
And I keep thinking about it. There could have been a very easy fix to the entire female Custodes thing in the first place. Like what the previous guy was saying, people were so in the dark of how the Custodes were made in the first place. Well, how about you do it like with Belisarius Cawl, how he made the Primaris Marines, maybe get another team that was specifically designed to perfect the Custodes process and see if they can make more broaden the process to include women. Because, like I said, they have to be the most pure bloodlines. And eventually, because the galaxy keeps getting more and more corrupt, bloodline would thin, and so they would be left with no choice but to try and explore female Custodes. And so they would start making female Custodes in the same way with the male Custodes with some tweaks. But then you would have to address the fact of different biologies, and then you can make it so, yeah, there are female Custodes now because we were forced to expand to women in the custodial guard, but the female Custodes are suffering from some like genetic things going on. And genetic mutations is not abnormal when it comes to especially the Astartes. You have like the Blood Angels, who are basically vampires, and they go into like the blood rage, and they or the thirst, and they drink the blood of anyone near them. So the female Custodes having a mutation, it wouldn't be so much as saying, oh, women are inferior. It would be like, yeah, this is possible, but we have this very negative side effect that we have to account for. So it could have worked if they, instead of saying they were always there, being like, okay, in the time like after Gilliman came back and we got the Primaris going, we started thinking, okay, how about we try and expand more of the Custodes, because we're running out of like pure-blooded males, so we have no choice but to start with women. So and the first couple of female Custodes we get, they are capable, but they have some very disastrous side effects.
And this is a very cowardly and poor way to push what was unmistakably a DEI-focused initiative. And now Games Workshop has gone an extra mile by actually trying to retcon lore on their official website to explain the existence of female Custodes, and are also now adding female miniatures to be bought and painted and created. Now, look, you know I'm the lore guy, right? But I'm not here to go into the lore reasons why this is ludicrous. Frankly, my knowledge on Custodes lore is still limited, and I don't have the knowledge or prerequisites to properly explain why this is in lore inaccurate. Instead, I'd much rather go into the practical, logical, and reasonable reasons I don't support this move. That's right. I don't even need lore to explain why this is a terrible decision for Games Workshop. So let me break this down as simply as possible, and hopefully by the end of this video, you'll understand why I greatly disagree with what Games Workshop is doing here. Firstly, let's start at the very beginning. We need to ask the question, why add female Custodes at all? What's even the point of it? Well, the answer given by many is this. We need more female representation in Warhammer 40,000. There are just not enough women, and if there were more women, it might attract more female fans and players to the hobby. So, interesting, okay, but this explanation begs an obvious response from anyone with knowledge on Warhammer, and that response being, but there are female-only factions in Warhammer, particularly in the Imperium of Man. You obviously have the Adeptus Sororitas, also called the Sisters of Battle. You have a whole arm of the Officio Assassinorum made up of women, and obviously the Sisters of Silence, who are meant to be the female counterparts of the Custodes. In fact, Sister of Silence minis are sold as part of the Custodes armory group. They are considered a part of the Custodes proper. Now, when this explanation is provided, the usual response I hear is this. Yeah, but no one buys those models or enjoys their lore. There's far more books, minis, and attention given to the all-male factions like the Space Marines. And the funny thing is, guys, I don't entirely disagree with that. As a fan of the Sisters of Battle myself, I am woe to admit that the amount of lore and uniqueness given to the Sisters is, frankly, pitiful. As a Warhammer YouTuber, Pancreas No Work, has pointed out, the Sisters almost exclusively exist to get beaten up on. One of the most powerful sisters in the lore is Saint Celestine, whose whole gimmick seems to be dying so she can respawn again. Now, hold on a second and consider. Saint Celestine is a literal angel, a physical embodiment of the Emperor's will. She has tangled with the likes of Abaddon the Despoiler and Karn the Betrayer, and she has won exactly none of those engagements because she always ends up getting killed by them or forced to retreat. Leaving Celestine aside, almost every book about the Sororitas that I read seems to involve them just getting murdered in droves and winning very Pyrrhic victories. Further, the sisters have so little in the ways of diversity, and I don't mean that in a racial sense, in a cultural sense. See, Space Marine chapters can vary greatly in culture, belief system.
Yeah, I've seen so many fan videos or shorts discussing this very fact that the sisters of, especially the sisters of battle, they don't have a lot of like different cultures like with the Astartes, because of course with different Astartes they have their own cultures. And so it's like, why don't you have sisters of battle who hail from like Ultramar and have more of like a blue aesthetic? Why not have sisters of battle who are kind of closely associated with the Imperial Fists and not just the Black Templars? So it's like there is a way to make this work, but you're not doing it for some reason. I think I fucked this up. We'll wait for it to dry. I'm so bad at this. All right. I'm just gonna wait for that to dry.
Some traditions and behavior. I mean, you can look at the Dark Angels versus the Ultramarines versus the Space Wolves versus the White Scars, and you'll see a bunch of differences in them. But most of the sister orders are incredibly similar to each other with only minor differences in terms of battle doctrine. This means that whether you have an Order of Our Martyred Lady or an Order of the Ardent Shroud or an Order of the Sacred Rose, they're all going to behave very similarly. And that's not even mentioning the Sisters of Silence, who've received very few books, very few named characters, and very few major events to draw from.
So it's like, yeah, the fans have been wanting an expansion for these guys for years, so why not give them this?
So, believe it or not, I don't disagree. The female characters and factions have been largely overlooked. But here's where I see the problem. If there really is a lack of female attention, which I agree there is, why is your solution to the problem of lack of female involvement to simply push females into male-only factions when you could call for more attention to be given to female factions that exist? This question is often followed by a long, awkward silence because there really is no good answer that does not involve DEI initiatives or inclusivity agendas, or at least very poor reasoning. However, I have heard one response that makes me chuckle: because the Warhammer fan base is sexist and doesn't like female factions. Now, I want you to consider the hilarity of that argument. Really think about that logic for just a second. Let's break it down. Problem: there is a lack of female inclusivity in Warhammer because the fan base is sexist and hates women. Therefore, the fan base only wants to invest in the male-only factions. Solution to problem: force females into the male-only factions. And this is a good idea because the Warhammer community is sexist and hates women. And therefore, they will now buy the all-male factions that have women in them.
Like, if anything, let's say the Warhammer fan base is extremely sexist, which from what I've seen, they are not. If you knew for a fact that your fan base is sexist and they would not tolerate women whatsoever, why would you even involve women in the first place? Like, why would you even bother? Like, it's not like Warhammer is going complete heavy metal where all the girls are basically in ironclad bikinis all the time. All of the female factions are pretty tamely dressed. But it's like, if you knew this was a problem in your community, why are you trying to force it down their throats? Because if anything, that's going to make them dislike whatever you're doing more. All right, I think this will be great. This looks much better for all this. I think I'll do the highlights another day. Yeah. So he kind of looks like shit again, but at least I got some progress done. Progress! All right.
Because it just don't add up. See, here's the problem. If the Warhammer community really is just made up of sexist pigs, like you say, who don't want anything to do with ladies in their hobby, what makes you think it's a net positive to force women into the male factions? I mean, it won't change their minds. It'll only make them less likely to invest in the factions they once loved. See, here's the real truth. It's not that the Warhammer community hates women. It's that we
I'll do
love
the highlights
lore.
later.
And when you change the lore so blatantly, It doesn't endear us to what you want. It enrages us because it feels like you're hijacking the lore, not to please the community, but to appeal to your personal interests or wants. Now, here's the obvious comments I'm expecting from all this, because I get it all the time. A lot of people get it. It is the most common refutation I hear when it comes to this topic, and it goes something like this. Bro, what's the big deal with female Custodes or female Space Marines? Why does it matter so much if women are added to the male factions? It's not that big a deal, man. That answer, that refutation is a weak one because it lacks self-awareness. Because my response to it is simply this. All right, if it is not a big deal, as you say, if it's not all that important, why do you demand it? Really? Honestly, because you can't have it both ways, guys.
I have this comparison that I want to make where, okay, so let's say that like ESPN came up to me and said, Heather, we know you don't like sports, so what can we change about like football to make it appeal more to you as a woman? I'd be like, why are you even asking me? Because I just don't want it. I never wanted any of it. I mean, if you asked me what I wanted out of sports, I would say I would make them shorter. I would add more like entertainment segments in them, but I still wouldn't go see it. And then it would piss off the people who liked football. So it's like, why are you demanding to make football more like inclusive to people like me? If first off, I don't want it. And second of all, it really is not going to go very well.
Either adding women to the male factions is not a big deal and therefore doesn't need to be pushed, encouraged, or defended, or it is super important, we should all be on board with it. So you don't get to have your cake and eat it too, guys. But more important than that, I think the bigger issue is the obvious insult that this answer is to the female factions that exist. Consider for a moment what that...
All right, so it's about the hour mark. I'll link this video down below if you want to view the rest of Raven's points. It's getting about time where I should start meal prepping, and boyfriend is waking up too, so there's that. But anyways, got my mini somewhat done. And if you have any questions or have anything else to add about the whole female Custodes thing, leave them down below, and we'll go over them the next time. Alrighty, so in that case, I hope you enjoyed this little stream and my commentary on it, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!